It's us. So Ephesians chapter 3 verse 1, and we see, for this cause I, Paul, the prisoner of Jesus Christ, for you Gentiles. He still says he's a prisoner. Who's the one that locked him up? God did. He says, I like my prison. Amen. I'm a prisoner of Christ. He said, so I like my jail. You know, I tell you what, if you ever been to one of them federal jails, they got swimming pools and tennis courts and all kinds. I tell you, prison ain't that bad if you get to one of them high-dollar federal prisons. And so Paul says, I'm a prisoner. He said, for you have heard of the dispensation of grace of God, which is given unto me, given me to you word. Dispensation just means time period. Very first time period is the time period of innocence. Do you remember Adam and Eve? They were innocent. They didn't even know if they were sinning. I mean, because they were innocent. And a baby has no idea, or a little child has no idea what they're doing because they're innocent. They don't know if that's a sin or not.
Right.
All right? And so you have the dispensation of innocence. You got the dispensation of consciousness. Dispensation of human government. You got the dispensation of promise, the dispensation of law. That's when God gave Moses the law to the Jews and said, y'all need to keep the 10 Commandments. You got the dispensation of grace. That's now. Now. What's the dispensation of grace? For by grace are you saved, not of works, lest any man should boast. What does that mean? That means the only way you get to heaven is by the grace of God. What is grace? God giving it to you. He said, here's a gift. If you'd like the gift of eternal life, all you got to do is accept it. And that's it. Amen? And you don't have to work your way to heaven. You just accept the gift. And so that's the age we're in. And then the last one will be the millennium when Christ comes, hopefully today. He'll come through the clouds. The world's getting crazy enough. I mean, you got weirdos dressing, guys in a dress, and I can understand if they were cute, all right? I mean, if they dressed, they were a cute-looking transvestite, but, some of these guys had a beard, and they looked just plain ugly, amen? That was a joke now, all right? Don't get on me now. All right, I'm just saying, there's ugly weirdos, and now the guy in charge of all the military, he's an open gay. That's just plain crazy. This world is getting crazier and crazier and crazier. We're apologizing for the bomb we dropped in here, in Japan. Well, what about them apologizing for making our soldiers suffer? They used to cut off their heads. The Japanese ain't apologized for that.
Nope.
How come they ain't apologized for that? No, we're going to go apologize to them. We dropped a bomb on you. We're sorry. Sorry for what? The way you're the one that started the war. It wasn't us. It's not like we started the thing. Y'all the one attacked Pearl Harbor. No, don't give me that. All right, verse number 3. Let's get off that. Amen. Let's get back in the Bible. How that by revelation he made known unto me the mystery, as I wrote afore in a few words. What is the mystery? Well, that's salvation. That's Christ coming and dying. You look in the Old Testament. They were not looking for a suffering Messiah. They were looking for a Messiah that would bring in the kingdom. And so them Jews, they were not looking for somebody to die on a cross. They were looking for somebody to come over and take over and say, our kingdom's here, kingdom on earth. And so it was a mystery. Whereby when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Christ. Notice he says, my knowledge. This is what I've learned. One of the things that you can learn from is by others. I told my granddaughter, she says she wants to be a big CEO of companies. And I said, well, you need to study all the women that were CEOs. I said, you need to talk to them. I said, why do you have to reinvent the football or the ball? All you got to do is go talk to them. Find out what college they went, find out what they studied, find out what other curriculums they did, other things outside of class. I said, find out how they got into the company. I said, you just do what they did and you'll make it. You got to learn how to study. You know what you got to do? You got to learn to study other Christians. If you'll learn, and that's one of the reasons I'm a pastor, is so that I can teach. And that's why we have Sunday school, so that I can teach and you can learn. And you can learn about the Bible. Paul says, I want you to know my knowledge. He is one of the apostles, and he says, I want you to understand my knowledge. What I understand, I want you to understand. And it's sort of like, playing a game. If you don't know the rules, and my daughter had a game of, what was it, Jingo or something, and you got to take out the little block, and we didn't know. I mean, you know, so I started taking blocks from the top, and she said, "You can't do that. That's not legal." I said, "Well, why not? It's the easiest one to take off." She said, "No, you can't do that." You know what I learned? I learned the rules. You know, you got to learn. You got to learn to learn. Which in other ages was not made unto the sons of men. Again, nobody knew. And it is now revealed unto his holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit. Who knows this? The apostles and the prophets. What is their job? To teach, to preach, so that others can know about Christ.
Amen.
That the Gentiles, who are the Gentiles? Those are the non-Jews. Anybody that is not a Jew is a Gentile. That's white people, Mexican people, Asian people, all the other people. These are all grouped as one, Gentiles. So that the Gentiles should be fellow heirs. What's an heir? That's somebody that owns something.
All right.
All right? You may claim, this is going to be mine. This is going to be mine. You know, I own it because my daddy owns it. And so we got an heir. Of the same body, same body, that's all of us, and partakers of his promise in Christ by the gospel. How do you get the promises? Somebody got to preach the gospel to you.
Right.
You ain't never going to know about the promises of God unless you get a preacher to get up there and preach to you and tell you, hey, God's got a bunch of promises. I give you one. I'll never leave you nor forsake you. What does that mean? God said, you know, no matter how bad you get in life and you decide, I'm not going to be a Christian no more. I'm going to go back to the mud. I'm going to go back to the hog pen. I'm going to go back to the way I used to live. I'm going to go back to drinking and drugging and running around. I'm going to start doing all that again. And God said, you know what? I ain't never going to leave you. I'm never going to forsake you.
Amen.
You can choose to leave me, but I'm not going to leave you. I tell you, that's a promise you can take. Amen. And God said, I'll never put anything more on you than you can bear. You know, I remember when there was a preacher and his wife died. And he says, you know, I know God's grace is sufficient. He said, but it still hurts. And you know what? God will never put more on you, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be in pain. That doesn't mean you're not going to cry. That doesn't mean the tears are not going to come. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a heartache. It just means God's going to be right there. He's going to give you the grace so that you can make it all the way through.
Amen.
I like that. Amen.
Amen.
That's wonderful promises. There's tons of promises in this Bible. Amen. That's why God gave us the Bible, that we might read it. Paul wrote this so that Christians could understand the promises of God. And God used Paul to put it in the Bible. That's what I like. Wherefore I was made a minister. Who made him? God made him. You know, some people think, you know, I know a lot of people that they go to seminars and other things, and they say, you know, I'm going to use my trade so I can become a preacher now. You know, I'm going to be a preacher. And I'm going, well, that's wonderful. You got the education, but did God call you? If you ain't been called to God and God ain't made you a minister, you can be a minister, but that don't mean God's going to be on you. God has to call you. And Paul says, I was made a minister. I didn't want the job, but I was made a minister.
Right.
You know, I tell you what, when God called me to preach, people said, well, I just can't believe God called you. I mean, not you. I mean, you know, you're sorry. I mean, you just plain old, I know you before you was a minister. You was sorry. I mean, you was a sorry guy. And you know what God said? Yeah, but I'm going to still use you. God will take the base things and use them to confound the world. You'll scratch your head and go, I just cannot believe God's using that man. I can't believe it. You know what God does? He uses people to make you realize God can do anything.
Amen.
He can. I tell you, God can.
According
to the gift of the grace of God, He made me a minister according to the gift of grace of God given unto me by the effectual working of His power. Who did it? God did it. Right. And how did He do it? Through His power. Mm-hmm. He said He's the one that used me. He's the one that transformed me. You know, one of the best things is being a disciple of Christ. There's two kinds of Christians. Everybody goes to heaven if you're a Christian. First of all, you got to get born again. You got to ask the Lord to save you. And then you have to decide, am I willing to be a disciple? A disciple is somebody that'll pick up his cross. Jesus said, pick up your cross and follow me. Those are the ones that are willing to suffer in this life so they can get closer to God.
Amen.
Most people don't want that. So the disciples are few. Now there's a lot of Christians, don't get me wrong, you can go to church, read your Bible, pray, give and be a blessing to others, and you can do all that. All right, but a disciple is the one that says, give me my cross, I want to get closer to God. The best life is the disciple life. But you got to do it 100%. You got to tell God, here I am. I give you all my life. All of it. And that's the one that's going to make it all the way through. And yeah, he's going to suffer, but I tell you, it's the best life. You're closer to God. You got more joy. You got more peace. Why? You're a disciple. Then you have those that, hey, I'm just here to do my time. I'm here Sunday morning. I'm here Sunday, Thursday night. That's all I got to do, and then I'm out of here. Okay. Well, you still get to go to heaven, amen. But you're not going to enjoy the peace and the blessings that God has for you.
Right.
Amen. And that He has for His disciples. Unto me, who am I less than the least of all the saints. You know what Paul said? I ain't nothing. I ain't nothing. Why? Well, if you remember Paul's life, Paul was originally a Jew that went around hunting down Christians. And so he would hunt down. Stephen was preaching, and he was one of the first deacons in the Bible. And Stephen's job as a deacon was to help the poor. Amen. Help the widows. He was like a nursing home preacher. I started off as a nursing home preacher. And he started off there, and he got to preaching, and they didn't like his message, and they started stoning Stephen.